All right, let's get into the next part of Chapter 2. Kapitel 2.2, 2.3 und 2.4, Verben und Infinitive, verbs and infinitives. So we have the exercise from the end of the last unit. We wanted to translate the sentences and then mark subjects, verbs, direct objects, and predicate nouns. And I've color-coded them here, so you'll see the subjects in blue, etc. Okay, so Jens kauft einen Ring. We have Jens buys a ring, subject Jens, verb buys, and then a ring is then, of course, direct object. Jens kauft einen Ring. So I have, I marked the parts of speech, the subjects, etc. in English, but they're going to be exactly the same in German for these types of simple sentences. Jens kauft einen Ring, Jens buys a ring. Jens kauft ein T-shirt, which is Jens buys a T-shirt. And you can see the different articles on there. Those are in the accusative. Jens ist Mathelehrer. Jens is a math teacher. And this is one thing we mentioned in the last unit, that you leave out the ein. Normally ein is a, right? But if you're sort of stating someone's profession, then you don't say the ein. You just say Jens ist Mathelehrer. But then when you translate it, you'll want to put that A in there because we do use that in English. Katrin hat eine Schwester, which is Katrin has a sister. We've got just the normal word order, subject, verb, object. And then we'll try the next one. Katrins Schwester wird Architektin. So now we've got Katrin's sister is becoming an architect. And we've got, we had to add the article in. And that's actually a predicate noun because it's after ist. And then number 6, ich bringe den Wein. I bring the wine. And also in the present tense, you can say, I am bringing the wine. Sounds a little more natural in most contexts. So I am bringing the wine. Ich bringe den Wein. And then you see how that's the accusative masculine, den Wein. And then we have bringst du das Bier, which is, of course, do you bring the beer? But more naturally, it would be, are you bringing the beer? So it's the same. German doesn't have present progressive tense, so you can translate du bringst as either you bring or you are bringing. And then we've got the direct object, das Bier. Okay, Star Wars ist der beste Film aller Zeiten. Star Wars is the best film of all time. Aller Zeiten is of all time, and it's sort of a phrase, a set phrase, and hopefully you're able to find it in the dictionary, aller Zeiten. But you can sort of guess, if you know that alle means all or every, and then Zeit means time. So when you see all time, you think, oh, it means of all time, right? So, yeah, and then that's going to be the predicate noun. Alle, der beste Film. It is the best film. Nummer 9. Haben Sie eine Minute? Do you have a minute? That's a direct object, a minute. And then Nummer 10. Der Mann dort drüben ist der Vater. The man over there is the father. And that's going to be a predicate noun because it comes after is. Okay, so let's look at these ones. So we have hat einen Euro. So er is the subject, he, and then you can say either he has a euro or he has 1 euro, just based on context. It's the same, einen, yeah. Okay, sie ist Studentin an der Universität. So she is a student, we'll add the a in there, and then at the university. We'll do prepositions in more detail later, but just at this point you just have to guess from context that if you see like university, she is student, university, it sort of has to be at the university, right? So a lot of translation is guessing based on what the information you have at the time, and then as you add more tools to your toolkit, you will know exactly why things are the way they are, or you'll have more certainty, but sometimes you just have to make your best guess. Okay, Nummer 3. Wir tragen Jeans. That's, of course, we wear jeans or we are wearing jeans, depending on what sounds more natural in whatever context. Nummer 4. Heute Abend gehe ich ins Kino. So you can say heute Abend is like technically it's this evening, but in English a lot of times we say tonight when we mean like after 7 p.m. So when you say heute Abend, am Abend, that can be translated as either tonight or this evening. And this evening sounds a little like formal for some situations. So a lot of times I'll say tonight. Heute Abend would be tonight. So either one is fine. And then what's interesting about this is you see I've marked I for the subject. And then what about the direct object predicate noun? There isn't any. There's everything else is either there's a verb and there are some adverbs and the prepositional phrase, but there's nothing. Yeah, we don't have a predicate noun or a direct object. It's just a bunch of other stuff. Yeah. Nummer 5. Das ist der Architekt. So we've got das ist means either that is or this is, depending on context. And then it's the architect. So because we're saying a definite, like specific, you leave out the ein, but you don't leave out the der if you want to say the architect, specific architect. So das ist der Architekt. That's a predicate noun. Nummer 6. Wir kaufen Brot im Supermarkt. We buy bread in the supermarket, or we are buying bread, you could say, in the supermarket or grocery store. So that's a direct object. Ich besuche meine Freunde. I visit my friends. My friends are then a direct object. Ich bin Lehrerin. I am a teacher. So the a needs to be added into the English translation, and that's a predicate noun. And then Nummer 9, wird Informatiker. He is becoming a computer scientist. So that's a predicate noun. Im Frühling reise ich nach Deutschland. In the spring, I'm traveling to Germany. And you can see I've marked the subject there, I, but I haven't marked anything else because we don't have, we got prepositional phrase. We have 2 prepositional phrases actually and a verb, and that's all. So you can see how you have a grab bag of stuff. Yeah. Okay, so now let's go to the infinitives. So infinitive means sort of the default form of the verb, a verb that is unconjugated. It's called infinitive because it is infinite in time. When you conjugate a verb, it means to change it for a certain tense and person. And so before you conjugate it, it has no time. It's infinite in time. So we have, for example, gehen, to go, kennen, to know, sagen, to say, liefern, handeln. Yeah. So you see they all end in en, or in less common versions, just the n, right? Gehen, so G-E-H, ge, that's the stem, and then en is the part that you change when you conjugate. Kennen, so kennen, ken would be the stem, and then the en is the part you change. And then, you take off the en or just the n when you start conjugating. So a lot of them look like English verbs. So we have beginnen, which is of course to begin, bringen, to bring, enden, to end, fallen, to fall, finden, to find, finden, geben, to give. It doesn't look exactly like English, but if you know what it is, you can kind of see the similarity. Gewinnen means to win. Hängen means to hang. Helfen means to help. Hören means to hear, and it sounds quite different from English, but you can see the H on the R, so it's got a few things left over. Kommen, to come, almost exactly like English. Kosten, to cost. Landen, to land. That one's almost exactly like English too. Lernen means, it looks like learn, and it does mean learn, but it also means to study, like to sit down and study. So you say, I have to study tonight. That would be lernen. Ich lerne heute Abend. Salzen, to salt. It's the same. Schwimmen, to swim. Senden, to send. Setzen, to sit. Setzen. Singen, to sing. Sinken, to sink. Sitzen, to sit. Oh yeah, so to sit yourself, to be sitting on your own versus to set something else down. Setzen. Springen, well, it means to jump, but it's to spring is kind of like jump, right? So it means to jump. Starten is another word for, there are a couple of different words for to start, but that's one of them, starten. Stinken, to stink, as you might expect. Stoppen is one word for stop, one of several words to stop. And then trinken is to drink. And then wandern, it looks like wander, but it's actually hiking, to hike. So it's a quite related meaning, but not exactly the same. And then waschen, to wash. Waschen, yeah. Okay, so there are a lot of verbs that end in ieren, and they are those are all loan words from Latin. So they come from Latin, so they end up looking like the same loan words that we got from Latin and English. So these are easy verbs because you don't have to really look them up as much. There could be a tricky one here or there, but in general they're pretty straightforward. Analysieren is to analyze. Argumentieren, to argue for a point. Debattieren, to debate. Demonstrieren, to demonstrate. Dokumentieren, to document. All these. Yeah, so you can go through all those, but they all just mean what they look like. They mean reparieren, to repair. Trainieren, to train, mostly for like exercise purposes. Train a sport or a skill. Yeah, so these are all very straightforward. And then ieren, yeah, you can see that the en would be what you would take off to conjugate. So let's learn how to conjugate verbs in the present tense. So wo wohnst du is of course a question you might ask when you first meet someone. Wohnen is the infinitive, to live or to reside. Wohnen. So that's where do you live? And then you might answer, ich wohne in Anaheim, Californien. So you can see it's got a different ending because it's a different verb conjugation. Ich and du have different endings. And then you might ask, wo wohnt Angela Merkel? She's going to have a different verb ending as well. Where does she live? Where does Angela Merkel live? So in English, where do you live versus where does she live? Those are different endings. In English, we don't do as many conjugations as German, but we do change our verb endings sometimes, mostly for he, she, it. Okay, sie wohnt in Berlin. She lives in Berlin. So if you look at the difference between I live in Anaheim, she lives in Berlin. So it's a different ending. It does. If you say I lives in Anaheim, sounds wrong. Or if you say she live in Anaheim, it sounds wrong. So you have to have the right endings, or else it is confusing to the speaker or to the listener. Yeah. Okay. Wohnen, to live or to reside, it's a regular verb. It's going to have all the regular endings. So let's look at our regular endings. Ich wohne. So we take off the en, wohnen, and the infinitive. We take off the en, and then we add an e. That's the ending you need for ich. Ich wohne. Du wohnst. It has a st ending after the stem. Er, sie, es wohnt has the t ending after the stem. Wir wohnen, en ending after the stem. Ihr wohnt, the t ending, it matches the er, sie, es. Ihr wohnt, er, sie, es wohnt, it's the same. Sie wohnen, they live, and then sie wohnen for you formal live, the same. Yeah. So of course, it's useful for you to memorize these and be able to conjugate actively, but you just need to be able to recognize them because sometimes it's a little, if you don't know, if it's hard to find the subject sometimes, and then if you see how the verb is conjugated, it will help you locate the subject. So it is very useful to know the conjugations, to pick apart the sentence. But since you don't have to write sentences from scratch in German, you don't technically have to have these super memorized. But I would encourage you to memorize them anyway. So let's look at spielen. This is regular. Ich spiele, du spielst, er, sie, es spielt, wir spielen, ihr spielt, sie spielen, sie spielen. Same endings. So let's try gehen, to go, and then we're going to take off the en, and we've got our stem, which is ge, G-E-H. So ich gehe, du gehst, er, sie, es geht, wir gehen, ihr geht, sie gehen, sie gehen. Yeah, technically that H is silent. It's what the H is there to make the vowel longer. It makes a long E sound. So gehen. So it has a roll, but you don't technically pronounce the H. Gehen. You don't like try to say it, H in the middle of the word. Gehen. Even as it sounds horrible. Gehen. No, that's not it. Gehen. So you just say the long E, and then you go to the schwa after that. Gehen. Yeah. Okay. Verben im Präsens, verbs in the present. So English has a present tense and also a present progressive. So in English, we might say I go, but probably even more commonly, we say I am going. That's present progressive tense. German does not have a progressive tense, so whenever you would use a progressive in English, just use the regular present tense in German. So the present can also indicate the near future. So everything that you would say in English, like I go, I am going, I'm going to go, I will go, there is a future tense we'll do later, but it's not used as often. People use the present tense it encompasses more in German than it does in English. So all of those, and I do go, which is a pretty rare form, but it's still a present tense form. All of those would be ich gehe. I go, I'm going to go. Well, yeah. So depending on context, you'll have to choose which one of those to use to translate ich gehe. But most of the time, it's going to be either I go or I am going. But yeah, just be aware of that, and don't try to. People often just wish there was a present. They want to say I am going, so they say ich bin, and then they try to figure out what the word for going is, and it's like it doesn't work that way. Just ich gehe, I go means both I go and I am going. Yeah. Okay, so now we got to do our irregular sein, which is to be. To be is irregular in most languages, I think. So ich bin, du bist. Er, sie, es ist. So that one looks like English. He, she, it is, right? Ich bin doesn't look like I am, but bin is our past participle, so it's kind of interesting. Wir sind, ihr seid, that's an interesting one. Sie sind and sie sind. So this is like I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, y'all are, she, or they are, and you are, formal. Yeah, so those just have to be memorized. They're quite irregular. Haben is slightly irregular, not quite as irregular as sein. So ich habe, that is as you would expect. That's what it would be if it were regular. Ich habe. But du hast, what's happening there is the be has disappeared. Normally you would take the infinitive, which is haben, right? Take the infinitive, and then you would take off that en and get the stem. The stem is hab. H-A-B. And then you would add the st, like we are doing the other ones, and so it would be habst, but it's not habst. That's a common error. People always say du habst, which is wrong. It's du hast. So there's a song you may know of by a certain iconic band called Rammstein, and probably the most famous song they have is called Du hast. It just means you have, right? So so go and watch that music video if you're curious. Er, sie, es, hat. So yeah, the B has also disappeared. That's what makes this slightly irregular. And then wir haben, ihr habt, sie haben, sie haben. All those are, as you would expect, the same endings as regular. Yeah. So haben. And then we have the verb endings again. So ich sage, sagen is to say, and that's regular. We take off the en, and we've got our stem, sag. And then we're adding all the normal endings. Ich sage, du sagst, er, sie, es sagt, wir sagen, ihr sagt, sie sagen, sie sagen. And then antworten means to answer. Ich antworte, du antwortest. There's a slight irregularity here because normally you would just add the st, but that stem ends in a t, so that e is in there to make it easier to pronounce. We'll have a little bit more on that in a moment. Er, sie, es antwortet. Er, sie, es antwortet. Wir antworten. Ihr antwortet. Sie antworten. Sie antworten. Those are all as you would expect. Yeah. So let's look at gehen. Gehen again. Ich gehe. That's a normal ending. Du gehst. Er, sie, es geht. Wir gehen. Ihr geht. Sie gehen. Und sie gehen. That's regular endings. But then if we have a stem that ends in D, T, or a consonant cluster like these, that's what we had just now with antworten. So the du, ihr, and er, sie, es forms take an extra E before their endings. So, ich finde, I find. Du findest. So that's normally it would be just the ST on the end, but it gets to be almost unpronounceable. Du findest. It's not good. Germans, they do love consonants, and but it's just that's where you draw the line. Too many consonants together, so got to put a vowel in there to make it more pronounceable. Du findest. Sie, es findet. Yeah. Wir finden, ihr findet, sie finden, sie finden. See the extra E, because that stem ends in one of those letters that makes it hard to pronounce once you add the endings. Okay, so we have, for example, finden, which is this one. Arbeiten does the same thing, to work. Antworten, to answer. Regnen, to rain. And öffnen, to open. Those all do the same thing with the extra E before the ending. Okay, so we'll look at finden again. Ich finde, du findest, er, sie, es findet. Wir finden, ihr findet, sie finden, sie finden. We can look at antworten again. Ich antworte, du antwortest. Er, sie, es antwortet. Wir antworten. Ihr antwortet. Sie antworten. Sie antworten. Yeah. So you see it's regular except for this E right here. Du antwortest. And this E right here. Antwortet. And then the same thing over on the E. Those E's. Öffnen. We can try this one. Ich öffne. That's normal. But then du öffnest. Because imagine if there was that E weren't there and you just tried to add the ST, it would be du öffnst. It's totally unpronounceable. Du öffnst. It's bad. So the same thing with er, sie, es. Öffnet. Imagine trying to say, adding just the T and not the E. Er, sie, es, öffnet. It's bad. Yeah. Öffnet is the real way to do it. Wir öffnen, ihr öffnet, sie öffnen und sie öffnen. All right. Now, we have some examples. Du antwortest auf Frage Nummer 1 und er antwortet auf Nummer 2. So you can see, du antwortest, er antwortet. There's the endings on those. 2015 öffnet die Architekturfirma ein neues Büro in Abu Dhabi. Yeah. So 2015, that's the year. It's like in, they don't, Germans wouldn't put in here, they just say the year by itself. Öffnet, that's the ending there. It's like he, she, it, because it's talking about the company or the firm. So it opens. Es öffnet. It's feminine, so sie öffnet. Yeah. And then, yeah, the present tense. Yeah, so the thing is, this is in the present tense, but then we're talking about a time in the future. This was in the future when this was written, I'm assuming. And so the translation says the architectural firm will open. So it's actually translated as what we would call the future, but the verb is in the present tense plus a time in the future. So that implies the future. So that is one way to get a nice translation. Was machen Sie? Hier. Was machen Sie? Ich öffne das Buch. There's the conjugation. Ich öffne. I am opening the book. I open the book, or I am opening the book, whichever sounds more natural in the context. Okay, so then we have verb stems that end in S, S-set, and set, all the S sounds. When the verb stem ends in S sound, then the du form only adds a T, not ST, as you would expect. So, ich heiße, my name is, I am called, ich heiße. Du heißt. So the S-set is equivalent to a double S, SS. So if we added another S, that would be like 3 S's in a row, and that's just superfluous. So we don't add that S, that doesn't need to be there. Er, sie, es heißt. Ihr heißen, ihr heißt, sie heißen, sie heißen. So only a very slight irregularity there. Just don't add another S when on the du form. Heißen does this, reisen does this, tanzen, und so weiter, etc. Yeah. So the reason it really changes, it would change the phonetics too much, and it would sound like a different word if you added the S. So, ich reise, du reist. So it's just adding another S. It would just start to look like a different word, because reisen with 2 S's is actually to rip. So it's the reason you don't add another S there, because it just starts to look like a different word entirely. Yeah. Er, sie, es reist. Wir reisen. Ihr reist. Sie reisen. Sie reisen. Yeah. Okay. Tanzen has a S sound. The Z is like a TS type sound, tanzen. So, ich tanze, du tanzt. If you had like ZST, it's just not part of German phonetics. It just doesn't work. So, du tanzt. Just add the T, not the ST. Sie, es tanzt. Wir tanzen. Ihr tanzt. Sie tanzen. Sie tanzen. Yeah. So you don't have to worry too much about being able to conjugate these fully on your own, because you just need to be able to recognize them to make good translations. So here we have the same rule again. If we have the S sound, then the dual form doesn't take the S, just the T. Let's see, we've got this example here. Der bekannte Architekt heißt Santiago Calatrava. Sitzt in der ersten Reihe. Yeah, so heißt right here, that's just he. He is named, and then sitzt, he is sitting. Yeah. Okay, so then we have some meanings of verbs. So when you have the present tense in German, you could, of course, say different things. So depending on the context, ich sage may best translate as I say in general, or I am saying, depending on, like I'm saying it right now, or, depending on the other things in the context. And then sage ich is like a yes-no question. Do I say or am I saying? And then we have es regnet in Seattle. Regnet es oft an der Westküste would be the English. It's raining in Seattle. Does it rain often on the West Coast? So this one is like in the English progressive. It is raining. But then this one is in the regular present tense in English. It rains. Does it rain? And so this is like it's raining right now versus does it often rain? But you see how in the German it's actually the same. Es regnet, both. And then es regnet nie, it never rains. That's the regular present. Yeah. So you will find conjugated forms of verbs. So you have to derive the infinitive from the conjugated form of the verb to find the meaning of the verb, right? So when you see a conjugated verb in a text, then you need to know what the infinitive is in order to look up in the dictionary. So take off the endings we were just talking about and add the en or the n, and then you'll be able to get to the dictionary form of the verb. Yeah. Okay, present tense of haben. So we have these ones again. Ich habe, du hast. Whenever I say du hast, I hear the Rammstein song in my head. Du hast mich. We can go over that. When we go into the past tense, then we'll go back to Rammstein, because there's actually some really fun wordplay in that song. Okay, ich habe, du hast, sie, es hat. Wir haben, ihr habt, sie haben. Haben Sie Musik von Bach auf Ihrem iPod? Ja, der iPod hat die Bach-Kantate. Ich habe genug drauf. Im Katalog hat die Kantate die Nummer BWV 82. So, do you have the music? Haben Sie? Do you have? And then the iPod has, der iPod hat, the iPod has. In the catalog, the Kantate has the number. Die Kantate hat. Here's the hat. Yeah. Okay, so here we have the exercises that you'll do at the end of this unit before you move on to the next video. So you'll translate these, and you'll need to form the infinitive from the conjugated verb in order to look it up in the dictionary. And some of these have irregular conjugations. So we have warum antwortest du nicht, etc. So find the verb, and then that will help you to translate the sentence. Yeah. And then we have this little dialogue, same thing. So translate the dialogue, and then pay attention to the verbs. Some of them are regular, some are not. You can note when there's an irregular ending. And then this is more dialogue with irregular verb endings. And then more practice with the verb conjugations. Yeah. So that's all for this unit. So go ahead and do those, and then I will see you in the next video, and we will go over the answers for these. So vielen Dank, tschüss, bis bald, bis gleich, auf Wiedersehen.